welcome back to another LinuxGameCast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, do you like ramming into bouncy things, ? Well, the next update to rocket cars might improve your accuracy. An A1080 Ti has been spotted in the wild. It's 10 gigabytes, dude.
Australia wants their money back, and Valve is giving them pocket change, and Aspire closes their store. Wait, they had a store?
Guess so. It's good to stick to what you know, and Datalink Entertainment are stuck, hot glued, and nailed to what they know. And AMD adopts Dry 3 and Terra-Free a year later than the rest of Mesa, which is of no surprise to me.
I'm Vince Stone here at LGC Actual, switching the bits, joined every week by the man up north, a favorite Canadian.
Oh, hi, Mark. Hi, Danny. Hi, Lisa. I'm dead, you know.
And all the way from space, Portugal, Mr. Pedro Macias.
For the time being.
For the time being. Also with Chat Realm Dynamic, helping us form that last little special bit known as Cocaine Voltron. Before we get started, we'd like to play a game. It's called What's Going On in Your Life, Organs. Not a whole lot this week, but I was reminded that it was Native American Genocide Day or some weird holiday they celebrate over here. When you look back into the history, you're like, wow, you guys party on that one. And I've had a lot of people go like, do you want to come over and cook all the dinners and all that? So I'm going to let them fight it out and see who's going to buy the most expensive bottle of booze that I will be drinking during that 6 to possibly 8 hour period. J Baby, what's up?
Oh, a couple things. The new Pokerman game came out, so I'm very, very, very trying to not go to the other room to go play it. Yeah, also good news on the job front. I made it to round 2 for an interesting company, so hopefully we find out what happens this week.
Right on.
Well, for me, I actually spent most of my free time during the week playing the game that we're reviewing, so I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Not really.
It's always a good thing when you take time to put in those special steamy games from the horse.
Yes, and the horse is moving around. It seems like his movements are actually doing something for once. It's the Steam update of the week. Yeah, so we got some new Steam client beta updates. There's one on the 14th that had an interesting thing for the PlayStation 4 controller, insofar as they're adding accelerometer support. The DualShock 4 comes with an accelerometer, so like when you're playing driving games, actually I have a DualShock 4, I don't need to pantomime it. You can do this, and it will steer. And now the Steam controller stuff will support it. So if you want to be an idiot like me, you can do it. And
right.
Right. Anyone else have some thoughts on that?
Not really. This is just more of Valve saying, oh, crap, we introduced PS4 DualShock compatibility, but we didn't really test all that much. So now they're getting everyone who has a PS4 DualShock and trying to maintain some degree of compatibility between that and a regular old Steam controller.
I don't know, Jordan. One thing I want to ask you is, have you had a chance to test it out and see if it works?
Not this specifically, and I don't think there are any real games that support it. I'd have to like set up some custom bind thing, and I don't know. It would take some doing. And I don't feel like it's worth my time. But it might be worth my money. And Valve has to pay a good chunk of change. You might remember this. Valve introduced a Steam refund policy a couple of years ago. But before that, they were getting in trouble from the Aussies because their dollary dues were not being they didn't provide a refund option for all those dollary dues that those Australian people were spending. So there is a potential for Valve to be, or the ACCC is asking the court to fine Valve up to $3 million for the lack of a refund policy. There's a Kotaku article linked in the GameSpot article, which is linked in our show notes. Blom! That explains this in further detail. In short, the debate is between whether Valve was intentionally misleading customers into not having a refund policy, or whether it was just something like, hey, we didn't do it. We're doing business in the US. We're not subject to Australian laws, blah, blah, blah. That sort of legal debate. So,
yeah, I mean, I was definitely looking at that. And in the show notes, Mr. Foxdog put down, because I was like, did they ever actually add the dollary due to the currencies in Space Australia, and Foxy was like, nope. But Pedro,
no.
this sounds like a pretty horrible fine. I don't think Valve's going to be able to scrape together that coin.
Something tells me from the last 2 months alone, Valve is going to get enough money from the profit that the Australian dollary do currently has in markup. Just from the last 2 months, they can probably get those $3 million to pay it off. Easily.
They could just as easily announce the fuck Australia sale and make it back in about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Up next, we have Warhammer coming to Linux. Yep, it's Total War Warhammer. So we had Warhammer 40k Dawn of War not too long ago, and Feral has now released, or will be releasing on the 22nd, the Total War version of the Warhammer. This is actually not just a real-time strategy. It actually has turn-based strategy elements similar to your 4X games that you would get, like your Civilizations and whatnot. So yeah, if you like the Warhammer setting and you felt like Dawn of War 40k was missing, well, this might suit.
It might. I mean, I definitely had to pull a Velociraptor on this one. I was like, real-time strategy and turn-based strategy. I don't know, should I like it or hate it? Because one of those I rather enjoy, and the other one is just nightmare fuel to me. But, Jordan, is this more than a skin pack for the Total War series?
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, Dawn of War was basically just the skin pack for Company Heroes, and it worked reasonably well. I hated Company Heroes, and I really, really liked Dawn of War. But yeah, the split mode is typical to that. To the Total War series, and actually, I've heard good things about this game. That even if you don't like the Total War series, this thing does enough different that it's actually relatively enjoyable. But the real question now is it going to be Mad Max quality or Deus Ex quality?
Well, it is the Total War series from the fine folks at Feral, so I think for us it falls squarely under the not great but playable category, Pedro.
Yeah, definitely. And even, let's be honest, Dawn of War didn't really run that well if you had an AMD processor. If you had an Intel processor, it ran just fine.
It ran great.
Yeah, but if you had an AMD processor, not so much. Now this, for those of you looking to buy it, is currently sitting at mixed reviews on Steam, and it's most definitely a Total War game because this game came out in May, and there's already $46 worth of DLC for a $60 game. Yeah.
Oh, they actually have a Blood for the Blood God DLC that almost makes me want to play it even more.
Yeah, and this is, of course, a Feral port, so you can forget about cross-platform multiplayer.
Listen, math is hard. It's very hard.
Totally.
Maybe you can learn about it in the library.
Yes, let's talk about silence, because if there's one thing you don't want in a podcast is that degree of silence, but this is a video game.
Okay, I'm glad we've established this on Linux.
I thought it was a taco. Damn, I was going to eat it.
According to the little blurb here, it says, "Can you save silence?" Oh, okay, so that's the name of the protagonist. The grim but also serene world. No, it's the name of the world. Never mind. Can you help Noah find his little sister Rennie in his suffering world? Can you bring her home, explore silence, and join the siblings? Okay, so you name a planet Silence?
Listen, man, I'm just impressed with the OS requirements. You have to install not one, not two, nay, 3 versions of Ubuntu
Yes,
in order to
and-
get this to run.
Well, you need the 1404 LTS installed in a chroot of 1210, which is installed in a chroot of 1204. So that's quite the setup.
This game came out, well, on the 15th. Did they actually have a 12.10 box set up to test this in?
They can use
be
pre-release.
impressed. We got keys for this, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
Okay, they
sent
sent us some keys for it because I launched it and it was like, I don't know about it. Looked genuinely pretty enough to where I was like, okay, close it because this is something because I didn't have, the headsets on at the time. And I was like, okay, all right, well, we're going to go back to this and give it a proper look because it genuinely looked nice.
And it's made by the people.
It is a point and click adventure game, and like Ben
Yeah.
said, if you look at the artwork, and the whatnot in the Steam store. It looks gorgeous, but there is a distinct absence of actual in-game footage, which will change soon if Valve's policy kicks in. But they did send us keys, so we might be throwing some chairs at it. I think we need a break for some point and click, and we're going to be doing Total War next week, probably. So maybe in
this
the far
is
future.
actually made by the people who created the Deponia series, who also happened to create the Blackguard series, which to this day they still refuse to port it to Linux. It's a Unity game. Well, games Blackguards 1 and 2.
Well, hey, man, we had to wait a long time for this to get ported to Linux, but it is here. It is Rocket League, and they do have a little bit of a good announcement. They said practice your sweet aerial skills with our custom training feature hits our next update. And they're legit about it, so you can basically program the ball and where it's going to go bouncy bounce and, give it a proper attack. I think that's kind of neat, and it's going to be hella useful. I mean, not for others, not me. Every time I try to rocket jump and hit a ball, old man Vin just ends up stuck to the ceiling for the rest of the match, yelling at clouds. But I'm definitely kind of looking forward to this, Pedro.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those things because I have now managed to finish the pro, not the all-star, just the pro, the average difficulty training course for the aerials with a 10 out of 10. So yeah, this looks interesting.
Jordan, are you injured and confused?
It's probably going to be good for me, so I can actually practice to hit the ball.
But that would require you to practice.
Yes, but
indeed.
What? It's time to get into control instead of out of control.
Yeah, let's go to the fire top and get in control because the fine folks behind the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, which is well, it looks similar to Hitman Go, but it's actually more of like one of those single-player tabletop games you have. And one of the things that they claimed that some people asked for was controller support. And, the Steam machines are out for whatever that matters. And if you have a Steam controller at hand and you'd like to sit back on the couch and just play a game with a controller, you can now.
I think that's a brilliant idea because you remember when they sent us the Hitman Go? I really don't want to play. Then I touched the controller and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I can sit down and play. All right, I'm going to put some time into this.
Yeah, I mean, but the knee-jerk reaction was, of course, ew, controller on grid-based combat. The game has an interesting mechanic, though, where you actually have to predict where your opponent is going to go before you can actually attack them. But yeah, it is very similar to Hitman Go for the small bit of it that I played. I mean, it's good that they're adding controls, and it's good that they're officially supporting the Steam controller. And this is a Steve Jackson game, so if you like Munchkin, this might be up your alley. It's the same game designer.
And the biggest thing here is that in the settings menu, they introduced a toggle where you can change between the Xbox controller and the Steam controller. If you are using the Steam controller, though, they recommend that you go into the overlay and changing the controller configuration to the regular gamepad.
What's the main difference, though? Because the button layouts are pretty much identical. The only real difference is the
layouts are identical, and it's the big difference is the right areola. Because if you are using the one that they recommend with most games, it's they call it joystick mouse, as in this works as though it was the right analog stick, but it works more closely to how a touchpad would work. But it's still sending joystick.
So why don't you whine about it a little more?
How about drinking some port? Subterra Core. More like Subterra. I'm not going to use that word. Anyway, it's out. Don't buy it because guess what? Oh, it's 75% off. It's $124. And it's a wine-wrapped piece of junk. Yeah, stay away from it. Don't let the mixed views scare you because they were very proud. They're like, we've harnessed the unimaginable power of wine and release something. And it's like, now you need bring the blink tag back for stuff like this. This is not a port. The only wine and port go in the same sentence as when it's from Portugal, and it's a dessert wine, Pedro.
Yeah, and one thing, this game came out in 1999, if I'm not mistaken. It was offered for free with video game magazines in the year 2000. In the year year do that? Yeah. So, yeah, less than a year.
Wait, you said this came out in 1999, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I just want to get this out there because people are like, oh, but it's so old, you can't get this. I was like, just shut the hell up because I'm going to drop the distortion shield and go Vengers 1998. They did a source port.
Well, I mean, this is Topware Interactive, the fine folks who brought us Vendetta, Curse of the Ravens Cry Part 2, Ravens Cry, Curse of the whatever. And
Ravens
also
crying.
the same guys who are asking, also the guys who are asking us to port 2 Worlds using Wine. So,
Yeah, and the game was not very good when it came out, and it really doesn't hold up. Now, I will make a case that if you are going to give the money for a Wine quote-unquote port, buy Enclave. Yeah.
Okay, what's this? Doom and Destiny Advanced? Huh?
Doom and Destiny Advance. This is an RPG Maker game that they published
You
on
can tell by the
Steam.
screenshots. What?
No, you just look at it.
No. Well, some RPG Maker versions look more like Dragon's Quest than Final Fantasy. But anyways, this is a turn-based RPG where you have some customized things where you play a bunch of nerds trying to save the world in a big classic JRPG adventure style. The system requirements are a little interesting because apparently the recommended hardware is just a Ethernet cord. You need a
So
broadband
are we
internet
just
connection,
streaming the
and that's
game
it.
from their servers?
Exactly. No, off a Pixie image. Even you don't even need an operating system.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But they have an online mode too.
it does
so
support
that's the thing.
cross-player
Supposedly it's
multi-platform, though.
Yeah.
So I mean, that could definitely think we might take a little look at it.
It's about $5 of your particular currency, according to the VPN, where that's giving me all my Steam prices now in pounds instead of Canadian dollars. I don't even know what the exchange rate is anymore. God damn it!
It's $7.99. Wet sticky cash is at 20% off, baby.
Yeah.
All right.
€7.99 because
And I mean, if you want to
pricing.
play a Pastafarian, that's what the cleric is in this.
Okay, sounds good. But in closing, Metal Tales of the
Okay.
Fury of the Guitar Gods. Fury. I don't know. I like
Fury of the Wild, Fury of the Storm. Yeah, this
So,
is a twin stick shoot 'em up bullet hell type thing where you have heavy metal themes, and apparently a couple international heavy metal bands have submitted or have provided music for the soundtrack. So that's kind of interesting. The noodling in the trailer is better than that from Slain, so it gets points for that.
Well, the last roguelike shmup bullet hell type thing we played was Starward Rogue, and as much as I love Arson or Arkin, however you want to spell it, after they released Bionic Dues, it's just downhill from there.
Now, the one thing that kind of ticks me off is this looks like it would actually be kind of fun as a online multiplayer game. Unfortunately, they only support couch co-op, which is a bit sad.
Yeah, single player coop. Well, it says coop and local coop, so.
I don't think they know what the regular coop
Well,
is.
if you scroll
Pedro,
down
you're
into
just
the game
taking a safe bet
description-
saying they missed the wrong tick box on that one.
Yeah.
Well, it's possible. They're like, oh yeah, no, it's co-op because it does local co-op, which we're also going to tick.
All right. Well,
It's very confusing. But coming up next, we hunt for checkboxes in NVIDIA driver GUIs, and we address the tears that are streaming down Pedro's face. Tears in the rain.
We are definitely not very good Daleks. If you don't know what that's about, you should probably
because
be
we
watching
scared
this
them all
live.
off.
But yeah, this is usually our news segment. But before we get to that, let's do some shilling.
Yeah, because you can be an excellent Dalek by heading on over to patreon.com/LinuxGameCast to help support this train wreck week after week after week. You see, in between our trying to kill the Doctor, we occasionally put out a podcast or two a week, and it's kind of expensive. The Daleks don't pay a lot of money, and so we need your help. Patreon allows you to donate. You get value for value. We don't get paid unless we put out a show. You can sign up for as little as $1. You can whittle that down to 5 cents, which is all we're really asking for. 5 cents a show. It's barely even the cost of a beer at the end of the month. It's barely even greater than $1 at the end of the month. But you get access to our wonderful little Let's Play series, The Left for Brads, which we have a new one coming out on Monday. So stay tuned for that. We're starting. We finished Left for Brad 2. We've moved on to Left for Brad 1, just like the Star Wars series. We're doing it out of order. We also have a lovely human being to thank in the form of Joe Angel. He is truly an angel for helping us out. And, if you donate, you can get your name in the credits. And if you don't want to go through the Patreon route, you can always head on over to linuxgamecast.com/support the shows. And there's a link on the homepage there. And you can use our PayPal links or our Amazon affiliate links, which, don't actually cost you anything and let you buy wonderful things from Amazon, like Prime subscriptions or episodes of the Grand Tour, which these guys were talking about before. So yeah, check it out.
Indeed. So in true LGC fashion, let's kick it off with the drivers. Anyone?
All right, yeah. So this is the 375.20 drivers coming hot off the heels of 375.10. It includes a lot of changes that were included in those drivers in the changelog. But a couple of the big ones they have some vendor neutral EGL stuff for the libgl NVD that's coming out in Fedora 25, which I'm looking forward to. I'll give you the postmortem on that next week after I spend hours pulling my hair out trying to get that stuff working on my laptop. And the thing that really excited me was the fact that they fixed that one issue with some DisplayPort devices where if you turn it off and then turn it back on again, the device will not properly resume. So now I can shut off my monitor and turn it back on without having to go into NVIDIA settings on the second X screen to change the resolution to make the monitor come on, which makes me so happy.
Yeah, I definitely have the same UHD monitor, and that has been an issue. I solved it by putting it into a power-saving mode without completely nuking it, but it's nice to know that I can completely cut it off once more. I was very excited about the force composition pipeline button thingy showing up in the NVIDIA settings panel. It didn't. I upgraded it. It's not there. I'm a sad panda, Brad.
You might want to do a clean install of that driver because it's showing up on mine and I installed through the run.
Yeah, I also installed it from the run file, not from the Ubuntu PPA, and it shows up on my end.
Maybe you need to open up a Bugzilla bug. That's actually later on. That's a bad transition.
But
Listen, man, I already have everything set my Xorg config. I mean, I know it's working, but I just wanted the checkbox. So
yeah, speaking of Xorg configs, I nuked my previous Xorg conf just to test the new drivers and make sure I could do everything just using the GUI. And you can, and it works even with the full forceful composition pipeline thingies. It works, and like Jordan already mentioned, the vendor neutral EGL is supported with this driver, which this is kind of a kicker. Fedora 25 is actually shipping with Wayland enabled by default. In the
this Tuesday,
version.
Man. This Tuesday. I'm so excited. It's going to be miserable. I love it.
Yeah. So we go from NVIDIA's drivers to AMD's drivers. Yes, because according to Softpedia, Michael Donzer announced today, November 17th, 2016, the release of the new stable versions of the open source Radeon, that's the XF86 Video ATI, and AMD GPU, the new shim. It's not exactly a driver, it's just a shim for your Linuxy goodness. And there's a couple of stuff. The biggest ones are they now support Dry 3 and Tear Free. Dry 3 has already been supported in Mesa for about a year now. They just enabled that by default, and NVIDIA has been using Dry 3 for a long time. Now, Tear Free, on the other hand, that's basically AMD's counterpart to NVIDIA's forceful composition pipeline. Now, if anyone cares to donate an AMD R9 Fury or an RX 480 for us to test, I'll be glad to run those tests.
I mean, I'm sure Monster Cameron is more than willing to prove how the open source AMD drivers are superior to all drivers in the history of drivers.
I'd be surprised. According to him on Twitter last night, last time he tried to use Ubuntu, it kept crashing on him.
How did he fuck that up?
I have no idea.
And so one other thing in this article that's kind of interesting was apparently Pedro clarified this for me, but the AMD GPU module can now load Radeon SI, so older cards can now benefit from using this driver to some degree.
Because AMD GPU, the all caps single word thingy, it's not exactly a driver, it's a shim, and it can load either the Pro module, which is AMD GPU Pro, or one of the open source modules. In theory, now they don't support R600 at this point, and where it is, they probably never will, because it's AMD. Let's face it, and they had limited support for some Radeon SI cards, but now basically all of the Radeon SI cards, at least the most popular ones, are now available to be loaded with AMD GPU. So that's good.
Will this help out with the Vulkan support, or are these guys still SOL?
You're a funny guy. Funny guy.
Well, the Radeon VK is supported by Mesa, so as long as Radeon SI is working, they should get Vulkan. Yes.
Theoretically, anyone with a Radeon card, send us some hate mail.
On the topic of Mesa.
Yes, while we're on the open source drivers, Ellie from Feral poked the fine folks at Canonical about updating their goddamn Mesa version already.
You mean Edwin?
Edwin, yes.
Edwin and Ellie are secretly the same person. It's like a Batman Bruce Wayne type setup. I've confirmed
it's Edwin. Ellie is the social network person. She's he or she is the one who replies most often when you poke them on Twitter or what have yous. But yeah, they sent to the mailing list asking the fine folks at Canonical to please, oh please, get us a PPA with stable but current Mesa drivers. They kind of need that in order to be able to support AMD GPUs.
Okay, I definitely get this and where it's coming from, but they want the Ubuntu to do that bit of work, which is going to be good for Feral because it will allow them to sell more games because they can say they can support this business. Yes. But I'm kind of wondering, Pedro, riddle me this. Feral, why don't you PPA all the things, bro?
Yeah, that's the thing. Feral, in theory, could do it, but I don't know. And they actually bring up a good point, which is like the OIBAF, the Padoka Zero, and the Exorg Edgers PPAs. They provide those up-to-date Mesa packages, but they're all relying on like once a week or twice a week. They pull down the Mesa Git and they build it. Now, for the most part, that's fine. But there are, every now and again, there's something that'll break and that will get people to start kicking up a fuss. And that's what Feral wants to cover their ass on. Because, so you guys are packaging this and this is why it isn't working? Well, then I'm not buying your games.
Well, I mean, I completely understand on the side that they're coming from. But it's like, here, you fix this, then we can blame you when it breaks.
I mean, Feral works with the Mesa guys to improve the driver quality for their games.
They absolutely do.
And I mean, they do their due diligence. But when it comes to actually packaging stuff for an operating system, with all the QA and whatnot involved, it would be a little better if Canonical picked up the slack, because then Canonical could say, "Hey, you want to play video games on your Linux box? Ubuntu is great until we start shipping Mir by default, in which case none of your games will work." Oh my god! But the other advantage to having a OS manufacturer supported PPA or repository for the updated graphics drivers is you can have a single solitary version of Mesa that is recent and current, supported on all current supported Ubuntu spins. So it would be like the 12.04, 14.04, and 12.10, whatever Ubuntu version you're on these days. I stopped keeping track a while ago, but that's certainly one
Canonical
advantage.
Themselves have said that that's the reason why they created the graphics drivers PPA, which currently only has the NVIDIA drivers, is so that if anyone would like to contribute, because they don't want to do it themselves, if anyone would like to package the Mesa drivers and keep those relatively up to date with at least not the stable versions, because it's Mesa, it usually takes them a while to get a stable version up and going, but something that's tried and proven to work reliably with minor regressions or none at all, preferably. If anyone wants to do that, then Canonical say that they can have those ready in the graphics drivers PPA.
Well, of course, you have to remember that due to Canonical CLA, they own all your work. So
yeah, they do.
Well, so from Hot Hardware, you can find all these links in the notes. It's kind of a bit
hot.
It's giggity hot. NVIDIA Force GTX 1080 Ti, allegedly.
Oh God.
Spotted on shipping manifest with 10 gigajoules of memory. Put it in my face. I want it so bad.
Yeah, it's about time to start saving up for another 2 UHD monitors, it looks like.
Oh, man. I don't know, what are they quoting this? Roughly equal 1,010 wet stinky caches, if all that is to be believed. First of all, I definitely got to say I'm riding my 980 into the ground, and I'm going to give it to Chi because I didn't forget I told you I'd give it to you when I upgraded. But it does make me happy knowing that Pedro's 1080 is soon to be outdated.
Hey, it was already outdated
already
2 months after I got it because the NVIDIA announced the Titan X, the Pascal version of the Titan X because NVIDIA naming schemes. Yeah. But no, this is... Actually, I think NVIDIA is probably going to do a better job with the 1080 Ti than they did with the 980 Ti, because Maxwell was basically the top of what a 32 nanometer architecture could do in terms of, low power usage and still provide a good performance boost from the previous architecture, which was Kepler. But Pascal was an entirely different new architecture. It's actually 16 nanometer FinFET, and 1080 Ti, unlike the Titan XP, as they call it now, which has...
Is that like Windows XP?
No, it's like an NVIDIA Shield.
No, it's the Titan X Pascal. That's where the P comes from. And the Titan X has 12 gigabytes of GDDR5X VRAM, and 1080 only has 10. So remains to be seen.
Only 10 gigs of VRAM.
Who could possibly need more than 10 gigabytes of 10 fast forward in like 3 years? I only got 10. I don't know. I'm going to be squeezing
right
on
now.
this.
I can barely push my 16K monitor at 120 FPS.
I don't know. Do you think it could run Unreal Tournament?
Probably.
Unless
you have an
a
AMD
Portuguese
CPU.
locale
Heyo.
set. Unless you have a non-English locale set. Yeah, so as you may remember last week, I complained that Unreal Tournament wouldn't let me log in. I could only play it offline. And turns out I wasn't the only one. And
it was brilliant. We had like an entire week of rejoicing not having to play against you.
And as it turns out, it's the exact same issue that those shovelware Unity titles that usually end up on Steam Greenlight have, which is the developers did not set locale awareness properly. So before you start the game, you have to set the LC_all equals. You can either use EN US or EN UK or even C. Just use C, so it just ignores the locale thing completely, and it runs on whatever it's set to. And then, and only then, I could actually log in and play the game online. So yeah, someone pulled a Unity with this one.
Well, I mean, I don't have to deal with this because I live in the real world where people speak English. I'm sorry, American, and I don't have set locale variables in my bash scripts.
Yeah.
But yeah, GameAgent, the Aspire store that few people knew existed, is shutting down. Aspire, bringers of such fine games to Linux as Civilization 5 and Borderlands and Layers of Fear, has decided that they are no longer going to have direct sales through their website. And I mean, it's understandable. Running your own web shop is a pain in the ass, especially if you're taking credit card payments. You got to secure all that to ensure that Visa will let you do business and so on and so forth. Though you can be using Stripe or another external payment processor, but that's an entirely different rant that I am all too familiar with. But yeah, I wish it would affect us because, Aspire stopped porting Linux games.
Hey, man, don't worry. There still might be a little bit of hope for that Civilization, but I think definitely one of the issues, the reason the store shut down was because you were not alone. I myself was like, oh, Aspire had an online store, TIL. On that one, and I can understand, Feral has their own store, definitely for a reason, and they definitely want to maintain it because, they don't get that 30 to whatever 40-something% cut, that Steam likes to take to run their service and all that business. Pedro,
I don't know. What was the last Aspire port? Oh, it was Layers of Fear. You know, that walking simulator. They seem.
Aspire published that one. Their last port was KOTOR.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they were just a publisher on Layers of Fear. Then again, it is a walking simulator that they seem really keen to keep promoting. But I don't. Why?
Oh, well, maybe you could make a better game using Unreal Engine 4.14.
I was gonna make a joke about Layers of Fear being the empty fork of GIMP, but anyways, yes, Unreal 4.14 is out. It brings a lot of fixes, a lot of community submitted stuff, as per usual with Unreal engines. This is actually the last version to support Windows XP, so someone can find. I still have no idea why people are still supporting this. China, obviously, but this is going to be the last version to support Windows XP. They've also added Vulkan support for Android builds, and you can now trigger Android builds from the Linux client. Is there anything else related to Linux? No, that's it.
One thing I wanted to ask about the Vulkan Android support. Vulkan support on Linux was done by the community because for some reason they couldn't be asked. So was the Android version done officially, or was that also a community thing?
Definitely going to give you 100% shrug emoticon on that because I didn't get a chance to clone the Git and give this a build to play with it. But hey, any news is good news. I mean, they're still chugging it along, and I think it's pretty neat, man.
Now, speaking of game engines, to close off this lovely news section, the fine folks at Godot have skipped their 2.2 release and are heading towards the Godot 3.0. It rhymes. It's wonderful. They're going to be breaking compatibility with the older versions because they have a new 3D renderer based on GLES 3.0. Their reasoning behind using GLES as opposed to Vulkan is to support the widest amount of hardware. I get why they're doing it now, but you know, it as time goes on, that's going to become less and less of an excuse. Maybe Godot 4.0 will have Vulkan support. But yeah, this is a great open source engine. It's the power. It's what powers Brick Simulator.
It is definitely what powers Brick Simulator. When I was like, Godot, it's like 3D, and I was like, oh, right, it does have a 3D component to it. And Foxy was like, damn right it does, Vin, shut up, you heretic. I was like, all right, I didn't say it was a good one, though, now did we?
No, they're trying to improve
There are
it,
a couple of puzzle games. I know one of them was still going for Greenlight when I looked them up. I can't remember their names, though. I should have probably written those down. But yeah, there are a couple of puzzle games that use the 3D thing in Godot. So remains to be seen if those will be updating the base engine to the new 3.0 renderer. We'll see.
Yes, we shall. Coming up next, we render things on our GPU and just chug at like a wonderful 20 frames a second as we throw chairs at Planet Explorers. Since time immemorial, there existed the cube. The cube could be shaped. The cube could be manipulated, and it could also be used in a lackluster planet exploration game. This is Planet Explorers from Pathia Games. It's on the engine, if my notes are correct. I don't think that's correct.
I don't
think that's right, but we're going to keep it in there just in case. That's the show title. You can pick it up for around 20. It's Unity. It's Unity with some custom work done. You can pick it up for around 20 some odd, more than 20 of your local currency, whether it's 22, 24, 27, depends on how badly your economy is tanking right now. But what is it? Planet Explorers is an open world sandbox adventure RPG game set on a distant planet. The game uses a new OpenCL calculated voxel system to allow players to change the terrain in any way and create new objects, weapons, vehicles, and do it anywhere. So let's kick off the chairquisition with, of course, the chairquisition. 1 chair means that it's crap. 2 chairs means that it's meh. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. 4 chairs means it's awesome. We got our categories: Odum, mixed with the working, Shinny and sounds controls, and Foon. So let's kick this off. Ben, did you have any trouble making Planet Explorers working?
Over here on the box of business, an 8150 powered with a 980 displayed at UHD, but for this game, it's more like 1080p because that's really where the sweet spot is. And when I say sweet spot, I mean an acceptable frame rate, not really, but it does manage that 45-ish unity of like, we had export, it technically runs, so be happy with what you get, filthy Linux user. It does have the Unity scream of Nope, yet they fancied it up quite a bit. And you get to see it a lot because it likes to full screen. Every time you launch the damn game, then in the upper left-hand corner, there's like a little menu. It's like, click play, then it launches. That's really all I have to say about that, and I'm going to ding it a chair for that because that is hella annoying. And, performance, it's a bit crap on the 980 with the 8150. But it's playable. We did a live stream of it. You can see what the crap actually looks like. It's playable crap, but, you're not necessarily going to have the best of times. But we're going to launch that with 3 chairs straight out of the box into your face.
Oh, yeah, and don't try to resize that startup screen because it doesn't like when you do that. And it'll take measures to punish you for doing that. At UHD, multiplayer averages about 35 frames a second, dipping as low as 20 at times. Although, and I did discover before I thought you had to actually change your monitor settings because the thing just straight up full screens and doesn't provide any in-game resolution options. But alas, you can change the resolution in their Nope screen at the beginning. So if you switch that over to 1080 on the i7-6700K with the GTX 980 running Fedora 24 64-bit, you get around 97 FPS on their default settings, which is pretty good. One thing I did try, by the way, just as a point of interest, is in the Nope screen, you can actually set the device which does the OpenCL calculations. There is no noticeable performance benefit from using a separate GPU to handle the OpenCL stuff. So that all said and done, I will give that 3 chairs.
Yeah, on my end, I hadn't seen a Unity game attempt to full screen into both my monitors and fail so disastrously since Unity 4. Now, I know this isn't running Unity 4. It's actually running Unity 5.2 point something. But still, it manages to do that stupid multi-monitor bug. And they actually managed to kick it up a notch because in those old Unity 4 games, I could just go and find the prefs file, change the prefs file to whatever full screen resolution I wanted, and it would show on just that one monitor. In this case, it outright ignores it because their stupid, fancied up version of the Unity screen of Nope just ignores resolution settings so long as you have the full screen thing ticked. So for me, it ended up, whenever I tried to run it in full screen, it would fail to use both my monitors. And we, like Ven already mentioned, we did play it on Thursday. We did a little bit of a live stream. The performance in multiplayer sucks big tits. And every now and again, the game will just crash. Sometimes while it's loading, sometimes smack in the middle of something I was doing. And that's kind of annoying. So for me, it gets 2 chairs.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good start. That's 2 cheers for Mixed with Working. Up next is the Shiny and the Sounds, Ven. How did it chin and sound?
Well, it looks like an early access game that got released, I don't know, early. Yes, because that's exactly what happened with this. Going against our charter and everything we stand for, I did do a bit of research about this and learned about it. And like the Kickstarter indie backers, it was a crowdfunded campaign. It needs to be released, and they released it. It was not ready to be released, Brad. It looks, maybe something from 2008, 2009. It's definitely not going to blow your eyes out of your head organ at all. It does technically have sounds. I didn't pay attention to them. Really, genuinely, the only time I'll talk more about this in the fun section, that the only audio I cared about was having either Pedro or Jordan or someone else around to talk to while playing this game to keep me from collapsing into a coma. I don't think there's any sounds that could have taken away. It's not fugly. It looks okay for something that's a bit voxely, but yeah, on technicality, graphics, they move, they work. The animation rigging is laughable. That needs more polish. Hopefully they'll keep working on the game. Sounds, didn't really pay any attention to, but you're going to get 2 chairs out of that. It's a middle of the road score on a technicality.
Yeah, I mean, the stock Unity assets and the 2D graphics really, really assist with, or really do take away with the majesty of the game or of the worlds. It looks all right. If you crank it up to beautiful, you get the nice light effects that Unity provides. Although the character looks, honestly, it looks like shrooms. It looks like shrooms. I'm not even gonna lacquer it with any special shellac or whatever. And it does have a soundtrack, but it also has a pair of croony assholes singing a cheesy song with the name of the game in it on the menu.
Yep.
That got it noped really, really quickly, because when I heard that as Planet Explorers, okay, roll credits, we're done here. Bye. Yeah, there's nothing too special on the audiovisual front aside from that, so it gets a middle of the road score of 2 chairs.
Oh yeah, if you've seen the stock Unity grass, you will recognize it in every game, and this game has it in spades. Now, it is good to see a survival game with crafting elements which doesn't rely on some bullshit form of hipster pixel visuals. That's good to see, because the voxels in this game are teeny tiny when, say, compared to Minecraft, where they're fucking huge. There was a surprising amount of effort put into the background music, except for the main menu one, which Jordan already explained. It's just 2 people singing a song about the game, really. But the background music, there was a lot of effort put into it, but it got muted pretty damn fast, and I just had my own thing blaring in the background. Also, I'm going to give it bonus points for not falling into the pretentiousness trap that many other games do and calling it depth of field when it is, as this game calls it, depth blur, because those other games aren't doing anything differently than this one. They're just blurring out the things that are off in the distance. And when you look at them, they get in focus, and the things that are closer to you will get blurry. That's bullshit, and it always gets disabled, but they get bonus points for calling it what it actually is. So it gets 3 chairs.
That's 2 chairs. And just as a point of fact, if they had replaced the theme song they had with the French version of the A-Team theme, it would have gotten 4 chairs in this section after that, 100%. Up next is Control. Ben, how did that work?
Controls. Unfortunately, both of you talking about the sounds undid a bit of therapy that I had done trying to forget how horrendous the voice acting was in this game. Talk about cringing. That was definitely a thing. Your standard was fair. You know, you pick up your gerbil, you do your things, you move it around. Nothing to complain about. I mean, it was logically laid out, and it does a fairly decent and respectable job of telling you, okay, do this, and, you know, kind of babby step you up into it. But, you know, with any crafting game, they have a tendency to go menu crazy with layers upon layers upon layers, and this has it in spades. Not a huge fan of that, but they're manageable, but they're still a ginormous pain in the ass. But I'm going to give it a solid 3 because nothing didn't work. So you got that going for you. No controller support, but playing this with a controller, that would be interesting.
Yeah, this game does not like handling multiple inputs, as I discovered while we were doing the multiplayer stint. Trying to queue up multiple actions or movements just does not work and will result in you standing still as some animal murders you. In addition, the UI, even bumping it up to 1080p and having all the little item slots be big, I find that unless you drag the item to a specific coordinate in the box, it doesn't register as you trying to put that as one of the hotkeys. So I got to ding it a chair for that. Otherwise, everything else works about as well as you'd expect for a third-person over-the-shoulder game type thing. So 3 chairs.
Yeah, I would, on my end, I'd like an option to set the mouse sensitivity individually from when I'm just looking around to when I'm trying to, say, aim down the barrel of a gun. Or at least 2 different sliders, one for first person and the other for third person. That would have been nice. Because if you're trying to control the game from third person, you probably want it to be a bit more sensitive so you can cover more ground with less movement. But if you're in first person, that is far too sensitive. So that doesn't really work. And when the camera zooms all the way in when you switch to a gun, it's not good. But I'm just picky about it. I'd also like an option to have a dedicated button to do that little dodge roll that your character does, because double tapping is all well and good, but when combat gets proper fluster-cucky, more often than not, my character wouldn't do the dodge thing, and he would just end up on his ass. So, get Sting the chair for that. 3 chairs.
I'd also want to say that Flustercucky sounds like some sort of avian porno. That's 3 chairs for controls. And finally, fun. Ben, did you have fun with Planet Explorers?
Short and sweet. Brad, unfortunately, I have to say, I don't think I did. Here's the thing. Just like when you first launch this game and you see what the business is, you immediately notice, like, wow, the pathfinding for the NPCs is hilariously bad. I mean, I have not seen shit on Rails like that since like Quake 2 bots. And even the engine just like flipped the table in frustration on like one of the first, what do you call them? You gotta run next to the person who's like, oh, okay, we gotta make sure that you're all protected and escort quest.
Escort quest, yeah.
Right.
Babysitting.
It just nope, because like you need to escort this guy, and this guy immediately like ran under the ship into a hole. It's like, right. There's pictures of this on my G+. I'm not making this up. And I was like, okay, fuck it. Maybe I'll just run around, because this is genuinely like the first 30 minutes of the game, and I start running away, and the guy just like pops up in front of me. just like, here, he screwed up. And that's not the first or the last time you're going to do that, and you're going to do that a lot, because the majority of fun or things to do outside of like randomly building shit is fetch quest. It's not new, it's not original, and it's been done before. Now, this is a survival crafting game. Doesn't completely suck. Multiplayer was tolerable. We spent about 45 minutes, say an hour doing that. I didn't hate it, but you add that price in, you get something that's like, okay, this is a really unpolished version of Minecraft type survival planet, whatever game. And then most of those games I give 0 fucks about. This one I think managed not 0.5 fucks. So it does have that going for it. I can't give it 1, but I'm going to give it 2.
Yeah, really the only fun I ever have with these sorts of games is playing with friends, and that's really because I'm just hanging out with friends. I tried the story mode for about an hour. And the story mode is just like this endless series of fetch quests and escort quests that I just can't be asked to care about. And when you really boil it down, at least to me, this is just a weird looking 3D Starbound. The crafting is the same as Starbound. Pedro will get into it a little more. He did bring up that it's kind of like Monster Hunter, and playing in the creative mode and seeing like all the weapons and whatnot. Yeah, I kind of get the Monster Hunter-y sense now, but that requires some investment in the story mode, because you have to buy blueprints for things with meat, and limited blueprints limiting your ability to build shit is bullshit. Terrible. This game might appeal to some people if you like survival games, if you like Monster Hunter-y type games. This may be this sort of crossroad nexus of genres that might be the chocolate and peanut butter that you've been...
There's a good game hiding in here somewhere.
Maybe but again, like these aren't the sorts of games I like, and this one doesn't speak to me in any real way. It's not like Dawn of War, where it's like, I hate real time strategy games, but I can't stop playing it. Why? This game does not do that for me. You might like it. I don't. 1 chair.
Yeah, there's one thing I like to do when we are throwing chairs at a game, and that is comparing it to other video games. In my opinion, doing this kills the 2 proverbial birds with 1 stone. Not Ven, but, the proverbial stone as well. More specifically, people who have also played those other games will have a good base of comparison from what I'm talking about. And they also get to formulate their own opinions from my biases, because they know, okay, so he liked this game and this game, so that's probably not a thing I'm going to enjoy. Or, hey, I kind of agree with him on when he said that, so this is probably a game I should try. So keep that in mind, because with that little prelude, whatever you want to call it, out of the way, as Jordan mentioned on Thursday during that live stream, the crafting is more Terraria than it is Minecraft. That's Terraria or Starbound, if you have played either of those. The combat is very similar to Dragon's Dogma, which in turn was just a more streamlined version of the combat in Monster Hunter, like Jordan also mentioned. The quote-unquote exploration is probably where the game actually falls the shortest. Although, even then, it still has more depth to it than No Man's Sky ever did and probably ever will. But when you put all of these elements together and you combine them into a single game, put your paintball helmets on, kids, because I'm going to start using broad strokes, it reminds me a lot of Legends of Aetherius. I'm willing to say that if the developers of that piece of shit had doubled down and actually finished the game, the end result would have been very similar in both the aesthetic sense and on the surface level mechanics to what we have in Planet Explorers. But they didn't. And so Planet Explorers is not only the superior game, it's also cheaper, and contrary to Legends of Aetherius, is still being actively maintained. Yes. Oh, and shitty performance notwithstanding, especially in multiplayer, the multiplayer works. It actually works. And it's also nothing short of amazing how you can literally create an entirely custom weapon or armor set or even a vehicle. You could just open up their editor, put in or literally draw everything that you want, make a car, make an ambulance, make whatever you want, and you can build it in game so long as you have the materials. There's enough of a game here for you to lose the rest of your life in, assuming you've managed to stop playing Minecraft long enough to watch this review. But something tells me, just much like Minecraft, the moment I'm done with the single player story mode, I'm never touching it again. I mean, I'm already having trouble justifying just having to restart the game every time it crashes. So for me, it gets 3 chairs for the fun.
And then it gets 2 chairs for the fun from all of us, boiling down to a 2-chair game. Gentlemen, final thoughts.
Kind of what I was saying. There definitely might be a game in here somewhere. This is way too premature. This needed at least another, I would say 6 months in the oven, but I would say more like 8 to 12. Another cycle of soul before they release. I mean, there's even typos in the dialogue. And, I'm not a grammar. So, but it still annoyed me. We'll see. Performance has got to get better. They got to get rid of that Unity scream of nope at the beginning because there's no way to deal with that. It'd be interesting to see how this would work with a Steam controller, with the profile settings. But, yeah, they got to do something. They got to do something with the voice acting, too, because saying it's bad, I mean, if it's tolerable, is like, well, it does sound like people are recorded in different locations. That would be too kind for this particular title.
Yeah. I mean, if you're that kind of person who always liked the idea of Minecraft or Terraria, but you weren't a big fan of the pixely graphics, and maybe you thought that No Man's Sky was going to be that perfect game, but were once again let down, then you are one picky son of a bitch. But Planet Explorers will probably scratch that itch.
Maybe. But if you're anything like me and these sorts of games just don't really appeal to you outside of spending time with your friends or maybe building a scale model of the Starship Enterprise, this is not worth the 20 some odd bucks you got to pay for it. So coming up next, we talk about how Ven fails at mixing audio levels, and we talk about YouTube takedowns.
Poke the bear, why won't? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for that little bit where we hate on males, or males are full of hate, or some bullshit that I came up over the past couple of weeks. This is the hate mail. And
Train
the rest of the show,
professionals.
yes, if the rest of the show hasn't clued you in, we don't really know what we're doing here. So if you have a suggestion on how we can do it better, you can go to LinuxGameCast.com, you hit the contact button, you fill the form. You can pick LGC Weekly for the hate mail, or Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays, or LWDW for a little bit of feedback. So you could also, if you happen to find the show on YouTube or on Patreon, if you're one of those awesome people giving us a few shekels, you can also leave us a comment there or on the other social networks, make sure you track down the original post. It's usually by me, Ven, or Jordan. If you find one of those and it's a relevant comment, we will probably feature it right here. So, what do we have up this week?
Up first, we have some mail from Narlin, who's complaining about the volume, and he says, "For fuck's sake, the lack of normalizing the sound levels for the hate mail segment blew up my eardrums." And any comments on that, Mr. Stone?
You just blew up my eardrums, Brad. Hey, man.
Good.
Ow. It hadn't finished healing, you heathen. That totes happened last week. The hate mail graphical bumper with the audio was about 30% louder, and Strider was like, "It's always like quiet," and so.
Oh, you and him had that slap fight in the show notes.
It was, dude, it was pretty fucking brutal, man. I mean, things were said that might not ever be able to be taken back, but I did fix that in the MP3 version after we'd spent quite a bit of bandwidth pumping out that other one, but I went back and replaced it, so it has been updated. Hopefully, it didn't kill anyone. Yeah, my bad on that. Oh. It won't happen again until it happens again. I forget.
Indeed,
That's fair.
Up next, we got another hate mail from Mavna, who says, "Hello, I was wondering if you could upload some of the gameplay footage separately on the channel. Most of the time I search for gameplay videos on YouTube and not necessarily full reviews. I feel like splitting YouTube with Linux, SteamOS related content could convert the infidel Windows users. Thanks," from Mavna.
If that worked, it would have worked about 5 years ago when I started LinuxGameCast.com, which was about what, Pedro?
About 5 years ago?
Oh, Jesus Christ, he's so drunk.
It's about Tree Fitty.
Yeah, it was about Tree Fitty. And about that time, I realized Pedro Mateos was a sea moth. No, that's what I started out doing, because people were, doing some really horrible game capture of Linux. And, you look at those videos and your first thought would be like, oh God, it runs like ass on Linux and these games look horrible. So I applied the one thing that I was kind of good at, which is multimedia production, setting up tool chains and all that, to that, and kind of brought it up to, hello, welcome to the future. We've evolved from that. If you want to watch like gameplay, check us out on Twitch, twitch.com or twitch.tv/LinuxGameCast.
Yes.
Yeah. We don't really have much in the way of just game capture anymore because we're doing 2 shows a week, and that's it's a bit taxing.
Yeah. And the odd stream as well. So
really make a point out of it, I could start recording the game footage we have usually going on in the background while we're doing the review. I could record that with sound, and Ven could just upload that, but that's not fun.
And just one last plug for our Patreon. If we make it to the 200 a week or an episode, then we get regular live streams where you can watch us play all sorts of video games.
I guess that is a very good point. I mean, if you want to see us play a game now,
yes,
you can mute the commentary if you want. But yeah, we have the Left 4 Brad series. We got a new one coming up Monday. It's going to be something. But you never want to.
So what's this about?
The soundtrack. So a while back, and I was like, hey, 9G Records, eat a bag of dicks. Not that there's anything wrong with eating dicks, but a whole bag, you're just being a little bit greedy. Let's face facts. I said, hey, 5-hour video hit with a copyright claim from 9G Records because we stayed on a Rocket League screen for a full mothering minute. And they said, we want to monetize all 5 hours of your video. You didn't, ha ha ha. They wrote back today, and they said, that algorithm is freaking crazy. We have little control, even though we totally set it up. We didn't want unauthorized use. Ambient sound for a few seconds is nuts. Yeah, it sucks. That's why we no longer play any audio from the game music with rocket cars in the after shows in, because that bot isn't a grammar, it's a Nazi. And yeah, we're talking like, go ahead.
It's a botsy.
A botsy?
not unlike a dotsy.
You know what? We're not going to do better than that to close this up. So on that bombshell, let's cue the music. You can always find us around 9:30 Eastern time when we're doing this Nightmare Train. Jump on for the adventure. We hope you enjoy it. We also appreciate everyone supporting us on the Patreons and with the PayPal, shopping through the Amazons. That's brilliant. You are brilliant as well. But I'm Ben Stone at Finstone on the Twitter nets, plus Finstone on the G pluses. If you want to scream in my face, Oregon, I'll probably give you a bite back.
I'm Jordan Svung. You can find me hunting Nazi replicants on Twitter at the Burning Fool or plus Jordan Svung on Google Plus. Or maybe throw some pluses in there. Who knows? You might find a special account that may surprise you or horrify you.
I got nothing. You can find me at Unaccounted For on Twitter or plus Pedro Mateos on Google Plus. And there's a lot more of nothing there, too.
Okay.
Nothing!
That's what we learned this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Flip your tables.
It's the best time.
Look, it's like
the best place.
I'm boozed up. No.
I'm boozed up. That's a fucking bit
silence.
Redundant, Pedro, on Saturdays. Like, really?
Awkward silence is the best way to end a podcast, period. End of story. 5 dudes.